Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. And today, as usual, we're going to have a few updates and then we'll get into the meat of the matter. But before all this, Simon Says empathizes with the families out there at Shantimel that lost their homes. I think it was 5 homes, according to the news report. And they lost everything, and the 6th home partially burnt. The nation, I beg, should come together and assist in bringing your lives back to normalcy. I wish you Godspeed. God bless you, and God bless Grenada. We take a quick break and come right back.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.
Welcome back. Last weekend was a big one for the administration. The weekend of Friday the 22nd and Saturday the 23rd of March 2024. Friday the 22nd and quote unquote the handing over ceremony of the Housing Authority houses. I call it the Housing Authority houses because the houses definitely belong to the Housing Authority. And they handed over the ones in Corinth, St. David's first. I don't understand if persons, the rest of the cabinet are not noticing something. Why couldn't they hand over the ones in the Villa St. Mark or in Carriacou or in Bush? Why it had to be the ones in St. David first? My man securing himself, and he just have all your day at his bending at his knees, you know. Nonetheless, you can see who's me. If you look here in that clip, you see they've been cutting ribbons and turning keys. All these things has been done before.
Applicants of the low-income housing units at Corinth St. David are one step closer to becoming homeowners, following Friday's ceremony to mark the handover of keys.
The keys were sitting in the housing authority already. The Chinese, the ambassador, on behalf of his government, handed over the keys to the former administration, the New National Party government, and they cut ribbon and all of that already. But I guess we had to do it over because it's the new administration. They take over the houses. It's now belong to them and not the people of Grenada. And on Saturday, there's a groundbreaking opening of the Range 6 Senses Hotel in La Sagesse, St. David. That is a grand opening, I should say. Let's take the housing authority. The administration had a handing over ceremony with nothing to hand over. In other words, no one received keys to their condominiums, because we now have to say condominiums. And that's why it's taking this long, apparently, for the people the few who got monies from the institutions, the financial institutions, to get their keys in their hands. They had ribbon cutting, as you saw. The ambassador turned key again. And that was it. 226 units in Corinth St. David. I tried to get some information from the housing authority. I was put onto a ghost because every time I call and I said, oh, you have to speak to the supervisor. And I just needed to know it from them, how many houses, how many condominiums, was occupied, how many people got loans, and that sort of thing, to get my facts to come here, because you know what Simon says, facts come first. Now, according to the Government Information Service, the GIS, and I'm hoping they have the facts, 150 persons engaged the financial institutions. I'm assuming they're the ones who receive letters from the Housing Authority. Now, and I'm guessing also, because I couldn't speak to nobody from the Housing Authority, that after they got the applicants, the ones who they assume would get the loans, those are the ones that got letters from them, after looking at their applications. If you don't have a job, you can't go to the bank. So I guess that's how they came up with the 150 out of 226. Only 60 persons, according to the GIS, out of the 150, 60 persons was qualified and received monies from the financial institutions to purchase their condominiums. And so far, only 30 completed inspection. This part I needed a little bit of explanation from them on. Only 30 completed inspection. Last week, I played a video for you with a long line of instructions that they had to complete before they could get their keys. I'm assuming that's what that means. Only 30 of them completed those instructions. And until I speak to somebody from the Housing Authority, I would not have clarity on that. But this information here I got from the GIS to bring to you. Now, as I said before, no one was handed keys. Actually, no one has the right to their condominium as yet. This thing might just take weeks and months. Well, it will take months for the other projects like the Villa in St. Mark's and Carriacou and Bush-Eju and so to get their keys. It will take months for some of them. So it was just a mad rush to appease us, because we started to talk about what's going on with the houses. So they came out the next day and now, and a few days later, well, no, actually the next day, they had handing over, but they didn't hand over nothing. It was just mumamagism, and so I'll keep you posted as time goes on. Then, as I said, there was a grand opening of the Rain Six Senses Hotel Resort, where noticeably missing was our Minister of Tourism. This after, as leader of the NDC, he lobbied for hotel investment in St. David.
Investors in Grenada, we cannot afford to continue bringing investors in Grenada and have them taking them to Granans and showing them all the beaches in Granans. We want investors to come to St. David. We want investors to also look at the beaches in St. David's. Granans is not Grenada. Granans is just part of Grenada. And we're going to make sure that when the investors come to Grenada, St. David is being given an opportunity for the investors to really look at the space that we have available and to give it some form of consideration.
But also as leader of the NDC, this gentleman, now Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Adrian Persuader Thomas, then as leader of the NDC, picketed the Rain Six Sense Hotel Resort at the very beginning.
Long live the people of Grenada! Long live the people of Los Angeles!
That was the voice of the National Democratic Congress's acting political leader, Adrian Thomas, speaking at the demonstration held Sunday, February 28th at the site of the Six Sense Hotel project, currently under construction in La Sagesse, St. David. The demonstration, which called for the preservation of the natural habitats and environment in the area, was organized by the NDC. Speaking at the sitting of the House of Representatives on Tuesday, Prime Minister Keith Mitchell accused the NDC of purposefully trying to hurt the Grenadian citizens in their attempts to stop the project. He described the party's actions as politically stupid.
The purpose of these demonstrations is meant to stop the project, to prevent Grenadians from eating our bread, Mr. Speaker. That's the point I want to make. It is selfish, backward, and stupid, in my view, politically stupid, because you must not be seen as hurting people. Particularly this time, the tourism industry is in trouble. The major area of opportunity for jobs and economic activity is construction. So the public sector investment program going to be key. All the private sector projects are going to be key, Mr. Speaker. So the area of most opportunity, you're doing everything to stop it.
Now, the Minister of Tourism, also the Minister of Culture, aided by a junior minister, Quince Britton, Senator Quince Britton, who has the responsibility for culture, okay? Senator Adrian Persuader Thomas went to Carriacou together with Senator Quince Britton, who has the responsibility for culture, to the opening of the Maroon and String Band Festival. Had a good time, had a grand time. I ain't gonna lie, the music was good too. The music was good.
Right now we're facing mental locks in them men losing come on and let them know.
That's what you call saved by the Maroon and String Band Festival. Now, the tourism minister could have allowed the junior minister with responsibility for culture to do the launch of the Maroon and String Band Festival, and then he could have joined them later on Saturday evening. We have, or maybe Sunday, because I think the opening of the Six Sense started at 5 p.m. So maybe Sunday, bright and early, he could have gone up with the aircraft and joined them in the celebration of the Maroon and String Band Festival. While he stayed, and I mean, as Minister of Tourism, said 2 words at the opening. This is a grand thing for the island, you know? Not, he went to Carriacou. Couldn't he? Or should I say, how could he celebrate the opening of the hotel with a clear conscience? However, today he is silent. Report said he was out of state. Carriacou doesn't belong to Grenada anymore, it would seem. The report that said he was out of state. He couldn't very well attend the opening of the Six Senses Hotel, not after picketing them. I mean, with any kind of good conscience. And I think that was the whole reason why he went to Carriacou. It's sad, but that's what happens in politics when you talk too much. Also visibly missing at the opening at the Six Senses Hotel Resort were members of His Majesty opposition, the party that was in office when there was the sword turning of the Sixth Sense Range project, and for quite a bit of it, because it's just not even 2 years since this administration is in office, and we're opening. So the question is, why not? Why wasn't members of the opposition, her or His Majesty's opposition rather, why they were not invited to something like this, even if, as a matter of fact, they were not the ones that was there that initiated and accommodated the range developers. Even if they were not the ones, the opposition should be a part of things like that. They may not be opposition forever. No, we didn't think about that, right? Why? It's kind of sad that they were not invited. I don't know why. I don't know who was sending the invitations and why they didn't see it fit to invite the opposition. Nonetheless, Simon says, sends congratulations and best of luck on the opening of the Six Senses Hotel Resort. May it bring all involved immense satisfaction, happiness, and I'm speaking owners, managers, workers, and guests. Here's to a bright future, wishing nothing but success and good fortune. Your success is Grenada's success. We have another update. This one is on the incident that happened in the south of the island, where a young lady allegedly drowned. I brought that to your attention last episode. On Saturday, the 23rd March, 2024, a press release was posted by the Royal Grenada Police Force, the RGPF, and it reads, we're going to put it up on the screen for you as well, so you can take your time and read it as well. But let me quickly read to you here. I did not carry my glasses on set. Press release dated Saturday, the 23rd March, 2024. United States citizen charged with manslaughter. So it seems now that probably the autopsy showed that the young lady didn't drown and that she was murdered. Nahit Guram, 22 years old, behavioral therapist of California, USA, was charged with manslaughter by unlawful harm for causing the death of Sri Vaishnavi Mantana, 22-year-old student of India. The incident, which resulted in the death of Ms. Mantana, occurred on March 17, 2024 at Grand Anse St. George, in the middle of the road somewhere. It's say Grand Anse St. George, they're not telling us where anymore. Mr. Guram is scheduled to appear at St. George's Magistrate Court on Monday, the 25th March, 2024. Source, Office of the Commissioner of Police, contact the Community Relations Department. Now, you see, this kind of thing does bother me because you came and you told us about a young lady at a hotel in the south that you were called out for and they said she drowned. It was a drowning, right? In a hotel in the south. You come back to tell us that it was manslaughter in Grand Anse. I mean, that makes no sense. You don't have to call the name if you don't want to, but come back and tell us about the hotel in the south in Grand Anse, right? Then in local news, in an online print media, an article dated March the 25th, 2024, more details was given surrounding the incident. And I don't understand where they would have gotten the information but a lot more information than what the police would have given. So, right. And it says 22-year-old American Nahid Guram made his first court appearance in Grenada Monday after he was charged with manslaughter in connection with the death of Siri via Shanavi, I cannot pronounce these names, Montana, who is believed to have been his female companion. Guram and the 22-year-old Indian woman were staying at the Radisson Hotel on the Grandlands Beach, where her body was found in the swimming pool on March 17. The suspect, who is a behavioral therapist from California, appeared before acting magistrate Francine Foster, flanked by defense attorney Anselm Clouden and Ali Gill, where the charge of manslaughter by unlawful harm for causing the death of Via Shanavi, who is a student from India, was formally read to him. He was granted bail in the sum of $100,000 with 2 sureties and with special conditions imposed by the magistrate. Guram had, who had already volunteered surrendering his passport and other travel documents to the police, was requested not to leave the state without permission, as well as to report to the South Police Station every Monday and Friday between the hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. He is due back in court on July 30th, 2024. Attorney Gill told reporters after the brief hearing that the defense lawyers are waiting on the police for disclosure in the matter in order to plot the way forward in the case. And it goes on to say that the young man came to Grenada. He was due to begin medical studies at St. George's University, SGU, in August. And there are some other details that we wouldn't waste time on. However, I did say that there was more in the matter besides the peso. A little tonka bean or support must be get left back in the matter. We will follow this one closely and of course keep you up to date. I'll take a quick break and come right back.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.
Welcome back. Moving along, and our meat of the matter today is MNIB. It's been 1 year since the NDC ended the life of the Marketing and National Importing Board, MNIB. Now, since the early days, right? After the entering office in June 2022, one of the first major pronouncements of this administration by Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell was the ending of the life of the MNIB. Here he is.
I want to be very clear that based on my preliminary briefing as it pertains to the Marketing and National Importing Board, we may have to seriously consider ending the life of the Marketing and National Importing Board and reconstituting either a new entity or an entity that really was meant to carry out the mandate of the Marketing and National Importing Board. So I'm saying this early because it may not, also that it does not come as a surprise if we find ourselves there sooner rather than later. But we are here to take decisions. Sometimes you're going to have to take hard decisions. We simply cannot continue kicking the football down the road and expect that you can always come to the government for bailout after bailout after bailout with no turnaround in the fortunes of the entity, with no real plan to achieve the things that Marketing and National Importing Board was meant to do.
Okay. Just over a year ago, Prime Minister Mitchell hosted a press conference announcing the closure of Marketing Board to be held at the 28th, at the end of February. There was going to be the final closure of Marketing Board. Here's what he had to say then.
Now, to the issue of Marketing and National Importing Board, as you are aware, the government conducted a number of consultations during the month of January and February pertaining to the state of the Marketing and National Importing Board and how we can treat with trying to find a solution to that. Cabinet, at its meeting on the 6th of February, approved the following approach, and I'm going to provide details of that. Overarchingly, Cabinet has taken the decision that the reform of the Marketing and National Importing Board must happen. To that end, we will embark upon the following. One, the current MNIB will be dissolved over the next 6 months, starting effective the 28th of February 2023. The staff of MNIB will be severed, and the government will undertake the responsibility for paying the severance packages to the 94 employees at the MNIB. Between February and September, and if possibly sooner, the government will take a two-pronged approach to addressing the reform of the MNIB. The existing MNIB will be essentially wound down. The board will be responsible, the current board will be responsible for closing of MNIB outlets that do not need to be opened. We expect that the board will concentrate on the River Road facility and the packing house to continue servicing our farmers during the next 6 months. During that period, the board would be responsible for the management of the winding down of the MNIB operations. In addition to severing the staff and undertaking the liability to pay the staff, the government will also assume liability for the estimated $15.1 million of debt that the Marketing and National Importing Board is currently unable to pay. To that end, the Ministry of Finance will lead the negotiations with the third parties, including the banks and other third parties that Marketing Board is owing. We will also appoint a technical working group, and the technical working group job would essentially be during the 6-month period while we are winding on the Marketing and National Importing Board, would be to assist the government with the creation of a new entity. We envisage that entity will be a public-private partnership between the government of Grenada, private sector individuals, members of the public who may be interested, and other stakeholders, including farmers cooperatives who may be interested in investing in the Marketing and National Importing Board. The technical working group, therefore, will pay attention towards the creation. Essentially, their mandate will be to help government with creating the new entity. We anticipate that this will occur during the 6-month period while we are winding down the existing Marketing and National Importing Board. To do this, therefore, we had no choice but effectively to begin the process of bringing to an end the existence of the current Marketing and National Importing Board. It's a statutory body. It was created by legislation, and ultimately at the end of the 6-month period, we expect that the MNIB Act will be repealed. So in summary, the staff will be severed as at the end of February, and the government will assume the liabilities for paying the staff their severance. 2, the government will assume liability for the existing approximately, and note I say approximately, $15.1 million worth of MNIB's debt. 3, the government will, on its ability to assume the debt and, if necessary, renegotiate the payment of the debt over a period of time, have the assets of MNIB transferred to the government. Thereafter, we will expect the technical working group to do its work during the 6-month period, and that will include the creation of a new entity. We will then expect that we will transfer some of the assets of MNIB, particularly the River Road facility, into the new entity, and we would go about seeking private sector investment during the 6-month period to be able to take part in the new public-private partnership. So it is not a case where we are simply closing down MNIB with no prospect of a better future. We certainly anticipate that with the formation of a public-private partnership, it will put the food industry in Grenada, particularly our farmers or agro-processors, and those who are interested in finding export markets in a better place to do so with the new entity. We would expect that the new entity would focus on, amongst other things, the question of the storage, logistics, preservation, distribution, and exportation of food and agro-produced goods within Grenada throughout the period. As I said, we expect all of this to begin in February, and our timeline for the conclusion of it is September of this year.
Okay, September of this year, that meant September 2023. Now, did I hear right? Or did you hear right? He was closing the retail outlets, but the farmers could still sell to River Road, the packing house. So if the retail outlets close, where are the goods going? Where the produce going after it gets to River Road? However, we know now that he was speaking from both sides of his mouth, and that the retail outlets never really closed, I think, except for the one in St. Patrick, in Sauterres, St. Patrick. All the outlets, Grandlands, Carriacou, Grenville, St. George, Young Street, they remain open with little or nothing, because of course farmers started to pull back. They're not sure. You planting a field of cabbages and you're not sure if you're going to get sale for that. So if the retail outlets were being shut down, my question is, what is the reason for River Road remaining open and purchasing produce from the farmers, right? As I said, that was not so. The retail outlets remained open, right? When questioned about that at that press conference, this is what the Prime Minister had to say.
I do have another question as a sense of clarity to farmers and perhaps giving them a sense of security. What can they do at present now if they do have produce?
They can continue selling to MNIB on the assumption that the MNIB can pay them. What the mandate to the board will be over the next 6 months is incur no liabilities, incur no losses. If the government is going to take over all of the existing debt of the MNIB, we are doing so, and we expect that in the 6 months while we transition, that the revenue derived from the operations of MNIB will meet its obligations to third parties. And so we expect, therefore, that certainly as of the 1st of March, when this becomes operational, that when farmers sell to MNIB, that MNIB should be in a position to pay them, because in effect, the only obligations MNIB will essentially have would be to these persons that it is buying produce from, and the overheads associated with the purchase of and storage and eventual sale of the produce. The bulk of the staff will no longer be employed. Those outlets which are being rented from third parties will be closed, so you don't have rent payments and lease payments and additional overheads and so on to meet. So it should, in fact, put the farmers in a better position to be paid by MNIB during the 6-month period while we transition.
So in other words, at your own risk, farmers. Now bear with me, I took you right back to where the whole MNIB thing started and the demolishing of the MNIB, and no new entity showed up in September 2023, and we're here today 1 year later with no new MNIB, no new entity, no PPP, no marketing board, and our farmers out there desolate. Another question was asked, then if the retail outlets are being closed, that's the question I've been asking, as suggested by the Prime Minister, what will the packaging house in River Road do with the product purchased? And the answer was?
The first question relates to what will continue at the packing house in River Road. We anticipate that for the next 6 months, that the packing house will continue to be the place where farmers' produce are bought, stored, packaged, ultimately distributed for sale.
Okay. Now make that make sense for me. What happened, in fact, is that the farmers, more or less, being told you're on your own in selling to MNIB, that they have money to pay them, that was the Prime Minister's word, the farmers was mindful or is mindful of what or how much they produce. No, wouldn't you be? Because you're talking wastage. And as far as River Road is, they didn't have enough storage and they didn't have what they needed, equipments to preserve, according to the Prime Minister. As a result, food prices are rocketing, skyrocketing on whatever little they produce. I mean, you can't buy vegetables these days. You can't afford, most of us cannot afford to purchase vegetables and fruits, right? Importing has risen. We've been importing more and more items. Some items that has been barred from being imported many years ago. The question is, when was the ban removed? Things like avocado, tomatoes, pineapple, oranges, mandarin, bananas. We have already been importing foods like yams, dasheen, potatoes, carrots, cabbages, and livestock, of course. So we imported now almost everything in Grenada. In answering to the question on the new entity and whether or not there will be a name change, this is what the Prime Minister had to say at that press conference.
Would there be a possible name change so it will no longer be the MNIB?
Yes, well, the name change is certain because we intend to wind down and repeal the MNIB Act, and so the new entity will certainly have a new name, maybe as part of the general involvement of the public. The technical working group may look at asking the public for suggestions as to what that eventual public-private entity name may be.
I mean, I love it because he's believable. When you look at him and you listen to him, he has the answer for everything at the tip of his finger. He speaks well, he rattles out, and you can, I mean, you just want to sit there and listen to what he says and believe him, right? Then there would be a name change in the entity, and when it comes in September, the entity, you understand, right? No entity yet. This is what the then Minister of Agriculture had to say on the so-called new entity that we were told would be up and running by September 2023. 6 months later and counting.
Thank you very much, Calistro. In the face of all of this, we believe that the farmers have a critical role to play, and we understand the importance of marketing board. We know definitely it plays a critical role in terms of marketing farmers' produce. One of the things that a new entity will be going into is the whole question of agro-processing. This will be an arm that they will have to look at in regards to helping the farmers. But as you will realize, we have started the consultation process in terms of coming up with this plan with the farmers. And we will continue with the consultation process in the whole question of revamping the marketing board. There are farmers, you have to realize that the farmers, most of them are basically private enterprises, private entity. And it is time for these private entities to really come up and be part of the marketing process. It has not been like that in the past. The private entities were selling to marketing board, which was a public corporation, statutory body, and the farmers basically didn't have a say in the end product. In this new entity, the farmers will have a critical say in terms of going forward, and the Prime Minister did outline that they too will have the opportunity in terms of being part and parcel of the new enterprise that we are thinking of.
Agro-processing. Now, government came, government went. Since after the revolution, and our agro-processing plant was sold or given to Dominica, as far as I understand it. I stand corrected. All we hear about is agro-processing, and we yet to see any substantial, any industry, any in a big way for agro-processing, especially coming from the government, whichever government it is at the time. Now, on December 11, 2023, I am not sure, because you can find, when they speak, they don't say dates and why and what. But in an answer to the former Minister of Agriculture then, which was Peter David, before the NDC came into office, the last Minister of Agriculture in the former administration, Andy Williams, addressing Mr. Peter David, says, and I'm quoting here, "Mr. David, you left an understaffed Ministry of Agriculture with little or no implementation or anything in agriculture. Failed MNIB operations, little or no staff to do anything. Under this," still quoting, "under this administration, there was much assistance for farmers and fisher folk." We would like to know what this assistance was, this much assistance for farmers and fisher folk. "We are going to embark on agro-processing. The plant was already purchased." The agro-processing plant was already purchased. And that was last year, right? No, that was in 2022, right? So here's Andy Williams saying he or they already purchased an agro-processing plant. Not sure where that plant is now, if it's still in transit to Grenada, if it got here, if it's on the port in a container, if it's set up, and we are agro-processing. This week, we have consultations with farmers. This is still Andy speaking to Honorable Peter David. This week, we have consultations with farmers to prepare there for exports, as we have 3 countries on island interested in Grenada's produce. 3 countries interested in Grenada's produce for exporting, but we importing everything, right? I mean, who these people think they are and who they're speaking to? Why all this fantasy, this imaginary thinking? Keep it in your head. Don't come out and say, right? It's just mouth open. And we go say that. What jump out? Let me tell them that. Let me give them that one to hope. So another big shot committee was formed, this time a technical committee. They're good at forming committees, which you've heard the Prime Minister mention in the press conference several times. A committee to put things in place during the 6-month period from March 2023 to September 2023. That is before the new entity, right? Putting things in place for the arrival of the new entity. When asked to name persons on the technical committee, this was the Prime Minister's response.
I will not disclose the individuals, but I will simply tell you, in a sense, we have a chairman, we have a member from the Chamber, Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce. We will have a legal representative from the private sector. We'll also have a legal representative from the Attorney General's chambers. We will have a farmers representative from Carriacou. We will also have a farmers representative from Grenada.
Thanks, Amelia. Lest we forget the National Security Steering Committee and all the other committees with both members. This clip was pulled from the GIS station, and I thought I'd share it with you.
Marketing and National Importing Board owes 2 banks significant sums of monies totaling roughly about $6 million. As it stands, the MNIB is unable to pay the banks, and the banks have indicated to the government that obviously, in polite language, they'd like to know how they are getting their money. Item 3, give or take, MNIB owes about $2.8 million to other creditors. I suspect some of those other creditors, some of you may be in the room. That involves farmers, suppliers, landlords from which it is operating, utility suppliers like the power company, etc. And obviously it is challenged to pay these persons as well. The amount owed roughly is about $2.8 million to these persons. And so we are challenged because obviously the government has to make a decision in the current circumstances whether and how and to what extent it can continue supporting the Marketing National Importing Board.
In light of this, after meetings with the staff and union representative of the MNIB, government laid down a few options on the way forward for the organization and is taking these ideas to the people for discussion. 3 options were laid on the table. 1, a complete shutdown of MNIB and the creation of a new entity. 2, a partial closing of some aspects of MNIB and government assuming some of the debt. And 3, government continues to pump money into the MNIB in hope that the board can find effective managers to turn things around.
The other option is to completely close marketing board down. And the government assumes all of the liabilities I've just mentioned, which is the government then has to take over the loan approximating to $6 million to the banks, find the money to pay the severance to the staff, which give or take, we are told is in the region of $2.5 or $3 million, subject to verification, and assume the $2.8 subject to verification $1 million that is owed to other persons. That doesn't factor in the fact that MNIB itself owes the government several millions of dollars from the government having, for example, taken over the payment of the Answer McCall loan, which was about $4 million that MNIB could not pay. The government took that over. There's a company owned by the government, Petrocarb Grenada Limited, which also lent MNIB substantial sums in the millions as well. That has not been paid or serviced. So ignoring those for the time being, if the decision was made to shut MNIB down, we would have to pay the severance to the employees between $2.5 and maybe $3 million. We'd also have to pay the other persons MNIB owe, including farmers, which is roughly another $2.8 to $3 million. That's about $6 million. We'd have to pay the banks, which is roughly about $6 million. So that's about $12 million. That's if we simply shut it down and didn't do anything else. So that's one option. The other option is to shut it down and to start afresh. And to start afresh, at least from the discussions held by the government, would involve forming a company that permits the government, the private sector, and other stakeholders to become shareholders and have a public-private partnership that allows for MNIB to come back as a new entity. The other option is to look at a restructuring or revamping of MNIB that involves potentially sending some of the staff home, closing down some of the outlets, particularly the retail outlets that sells food and juices and what have you, and attempting to get MNIB to concentrate on what perhaps people may say its core function, which is the purchasing of farmers' produce, hopefully the storage, sorting, preservation, and the finding of markets for the produce, including the export market. So that option is halfway between shutting down completely and doing nothing at all. That option also would involve the government having to pay some of the workers their severance. It would also involve the government having to assume and pay some of the debts owed to farmers and other personnel, including utilities, etc. It would perhaps also involve the government having to pay the banks some of the funds, because if the loans are not serviced and serviced in a timely manner, the banks do have the power to step in regardless of what the government says.
Some of the people in attendance gave their views on the MNIB issue and the way forward.
Right now, we cannot close down marketing board. If we close down marketing board,
Grenada closed down. We need marketing board need the farmers. So we have to look for a solution to revive marketing board. One of the solutions is that they get foreign market for the farmers, that marketing board should not be competing with the farmers.
Well, I've been selling to marketing board since Mr. James' time, so that's a long time, since I was a little girl. And it bring me to my independence. I just tell people I'm an independent woman because I could do anything and get anything I need. So it will be very sad to lose marketing board right now because some of my independence will be gone because that is one of my main markets besides the market in the States. That's my main market where I supply all my stuffs like cocoa ball, all the spices.
Now, after hearing the farmers at the end of this clip begging the Prime Minister to save MNIB, that was at one of his town hall consultations, begging the Prime Minister to keep MNIB open. I thought, let me try and find out whose decision it was to close the doors of the Marketing and National Imported Board, MNIB. So I contacted and had a conversation with the former acting CEO of the MNIB, Mr. Peter Ander. During that conversation, I asked whose decision, my first question to him, whose decision it was to close the doors of the MNIB, and his answer was to me, and I quote, the Prime Minister's sole decision. Mr. Ander, being acting CEO of the MNIB, he was a member of the board of directors, and so automatically, being the CEO, he got a place on the board of directors. He told me that the board recommended to Prime Minister Mitchell, that is Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, that the MNIB should remain open but be restructured. He said the board gave the Prime Minister 2 proposals stating ways how the MNIB can be restructured, but the Prime Minister, Honorable Deacon Mitchell, was adamant that he was going to shut the doors of the MNIB and killed it dead. That is when he, Mr. Peter Ander, decided to tender his resignation as acting CEO. He said he couldn't deal with the high-handed behavior of the Prime Minister. He served from September 2022 to February 2023. He expressed concern for the workers that was rehired the day after the closure of the MNIB, and more temporary workers, more contract work. They were rehired on contract, no health insurance, no pension plan, no benefits, all of which they had before the closure of the MNIB. Now let us focus on the intention of the Marketing and National Imported Board when developed by the PRG. The intention of the PRG was to guarantee a market for the farmers, first of all. Guarantee a market for the produce of the farmers. To subsidize the farmers, promoting persons to self-sustenance, which while improving our food security. Importation drains the economy, but we import in everything. And as I said, and when I spoke to the CEO, the former CEO, and asked why are we importing so much stuff now? And he himself said to me, he's not sure because a lot of the items, the produce that are being imported now, fruits and vegetables, are on ban. They're barred. They were barred from being imported. By destroying the Marketing and National Importing Board, you've destroyed agriculture in its one, and if it's one sector, we can't afford to lose in, or if we can't afford to lose, is our agricultural sector. Food security, end of story. We have to be able to feed ourselves, right? I mean, COVID didn't teach us anything, right? I think a government can afford to lose, and they're not losing if you try to help up agriculture, right? The benefits eventually is for the nation, it's for all of us. You feed your people, then you'll be able to feed the hotels that have to import containers of fruits and vegetables. We couldn't feed Sandals guests. Now we have the Six Senses, another huge hotel resort, right? But we shutting down the MNIB, which in effect is shutting down our farmers. We've signed on to enter to the inter-island ferry, the ferry cargo thing, service, with Guyana, Barbados, Trinidad. I think Antigua might have signed on, one of the other islands had signed on as well. What we trade in? What do we have to trade? When the islands, we have it there already, all the stuff from Trinidad, Barbados, the juices and nectars and all the stuff we get from Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, right? We already import from them. But what do we have to share with them? What are we trading with? Woods? That's all we have, woods, a pile of woods. So we're going to package woods and put it on the ferry to Trinidad and Barbados and Guyana. We have nothing to export. We await the agricultural revolution. We await the transformation of our agricultural sector. I leave you with the former Minister of Agriculture, and I'm speaking in this period. I'll leave you with him.
And anytime you see the National Democratic Congress gets back into office, I say there will be an agricultural revolution in Grenada. I say there will be a turnaround of this economy. I say when they can bring virus, they can bring whatever pandemic they want, whatever hurricane will come, when we embark on our way to agriculture, we will survive any crisis that hit this nation. That is a direction, that is a level of the level of independence we want it with our people, my brothers and sisters. We don't want no economy that when we have a simple hurricane and a simple pandemic, that our people are going into a state of panic. We want an economy where we can survive without the planes coming here. We want an economy, my brothers and sisters, where we can survive even though the boats cannot come here and the cruise ships cannot come here.
We'll take a quick break and come right back.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.
This guy never ceases to amaze me. I want you to listen to this clip I'm about to play. Pay attention. Listen attentively.
Terry, if you walk around Sotes, you will see significant buildings in a dilapidated state that is owned by the people and state of Grenada. The government has in St. George's. The government has failed to maintain it, has failed to invest in those buildings, and instead it is renting properties all over the place. It is renting properties all over the place.
Almost don't make any sense.
It makes absolutely no sense. All right, so you have significant wastage in those areas because there's no rationalization as to how you use government services itself. And it is sad because, to me, if we invest in properties that are already owned by the state, right, and we can maintain these properties, it allows the state itself to use them, and it allows the state to rent some of these buildings to private citizens so that the state itself can get revenue, right? And now we can then invest in things like our police stations, which are in terrible conditions.
If we renovate the properties owned by the government and put our government entities in there, we get to save money so that we can do other projects like the police stations. We'll be able to fix our police stations. This chap, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell of Grenada, refused to move into the designated Prime Minister's residence at Mount Royal, St. George, because according to this individual, who obviously has the authority to speak on it, it is not classy enough and has outlived its usefulness. All it is, the house needs renovation, right? The trees are overgrown around the property, or if it's overgrown, cut it. That's as simple as that, right? And the view is not good enough for this gentleman of class.
We have had lots of low-class people with access to social media who feel Mount Royal is fit for a prime minister to reside in as it is. You should ask the government to let you stay there because it is vacant now. That place has for years outlived its usefulness. Has any of you who are today talking about the current prime minister's decision to not relocate to that Labast, overlooking Dabo, Mount Rush, River Road, Queen's Park, taken an objective look at it to see if you have a dog, if you will, that you really love, that you would allow to live there right now as it is? What obtained prior to June 23rd, 2022 may have been suited for that place. But since the commencement of transformation, it is obsolete. The entire grounds are always overgrown, as if to indicate that beasts live there. So you have to hunt for them. Ha, ha, ha. As we say, joke day. Anyone who knows the humble man that our current prime minister is, you would know that he's also classy. And his successes as a lawyer support his high standard of living and quality of life. Even though he lived on St. John's Street, a building he owns, necessity and practicality contributed to him electing to live there as a private citizen.
Overlooking River Road, Mount Rush, and Dabo. How dare you all put our classy prime minister in a house that overlooks these commoners, low-class people? These people at Dabo and them didn't vote. I guess the majority of them maybe voted for the Honorable Peter David, but who knows? Nobody is saying the prime minister should move into Mount Royal in its present state if it needs renovation, right? But our prime minister, who just spoke about money wastage in having to rent private properties, is now renting a mansion for $20,050 a month, not a year, a month, $20,050 for a view to behold. Well, I know what the house is. Yeah, right? It's the main house of the Cinnamon Hill property. It was once owned by Mr. and Mrs. Gray. They were the original owners of Cinnamon Hill. I know my dad worked there. I know, I've been there. Right? And so he's paying that rent. And right at the bottom, and I'm talking literally at the bottom of that hill, is the South St. George police station that needs renovation, or the 3 young criminals would not have escaped and murdered the 2 American citizens. $20,050 paid to their friend and client. Yeah, let's share the bread. Let's share the bread, but only on the top. It took 7 months to renovate that said house that the Prime Minister is now living at. That 7 months could have been used to renovate Mount Royal. While the renovation taking place, he remained in his apartment on what we call that street, St. John Street, as we heard from the goodly gentleman who knows everything about him. Ha, ha, ha. And as I understand it, the government had to pay him for those 7 months while he remained in his apartment. Allegedly so. Allegedly so. So that during that 7-month period, Mount Royal could have been renovated. 2-3 months rent might have been able to pay what, 60,000, 80,000. 4 months rent might have been able to pay to renovate Mount Royal, right? And in the meantime, cut the overgrown trees, you know, get the prisoners to cut the overgrown trees. The Prime Minister, he said it. And I couldn't believe when I came across that clip that he would have said something like that and turn around and rent. We have the police station in Grenville that said it's in a deplorable condition. $20,000 could fix that. I'm almost certain. 40,000 at most. The one in Carriacou and Petit Martinique, I think they only stop up the hole in the roof where the leak was happening during the campaign. That was a big campaign story. The Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and police station. Nothing else was done. I spoke to Petit Martinique before I can tell you this. Nothing else was done to that station. More foot and mouth disease. Symptoms. Mouth open, word jump out. And it catching, It catching. Listen to Minister of Health, Philip Tellis.
Frustrated. So now we, the government, must take full responsibility. Government is a continuum. We take full responsibility. We understand this is a problem. We embrace the problem. And now we are going to fix it. Right? It is on the outside. When you're in opposition, it's easy to say, we'll fix it day one. Well, the truth is, we intended to fix it on day one. And we approached and started the process on day one. But as in everything else, you cannot fix all of it on day one.
Takes time.
You have to adopt measures that are workable and where you can achieve the outcome over a reasonable period of time. And that's exactly what the position the government has taken.
Lie. What started on day one, Philip? What started on day one? And when he realized, he put his foot in his mouth, he tried to do damage control. When you're in opposition, it is easy to say you would fix it from day one, right? And then he tried now. The damage control would lie. But we did start to fix it from day one. What you start to fix from day one? The health conditions? Are you seriously coming to tell us that you started from day one? This is, or we heading into 2 years and you do nothing yet. You yourself said so when you took over the Ministry of Health. You threw your colleague under the bus, basically saying he did nothing while he was there for the 18 months. And today, as you realize, you say, when you're in opposition, when you're out there and you want to get in, you just say anything to get in, more or less. That's what you're telling. We were saying. So you quickly back it up with lies. And you know, our resident minister, what is ambassador to the diaspora, just they're lapping up everything, all of them say, because he know, finally have that red passport he wept for bitterly some years ago. Now have it. I don't know how they managed to get that bunch together, but it's a good bunch. It's a good bunch. Foot and mouth disease has taken over the entire body of the NDC. The entire body, you know. But then I said to myself sometimes, what do you get from a bag of coals? Dust, right? What do you get when you hire novices to manage your business? We hired a bunch of novices to run the country. From Prime Minister come down. How many of them went in cabinet? They all are novices. Yes, a couple of them, I think 3 of them worked within the public service before. But can we just take people because they worked in the public service to manage our country? No. That's a big no. Right now, can we take the cab sec and the press secretary, and they're working in the system, and a couple other PSs, and put them to run our country? No. So the 3 of them that was there before, they're novice when it comes to managing a country, to governing a country. The biggest novice is the leader, because he don't know politics at all. A couple of them are just little politicians in between there. As I often say, Ron Redhead, the narcissist who they had to get rid of, is the best politician on that team. Yeah, seriously. Right? So we did it as a people. Literally, I didn't. I'm sorry. I did not vote for them. But as a people, we put them there. What do we expect? What do we expect? Moving on. On Tuesday, the 19th March 2024, I attended the official funeral service of the late Michael Winston White. So, gentlemen, I always respected all his vocabulary, the way he spoke. He was a narrator. And I just loved speaking to him or hearing him speak. The ceremony was the church service, I'm sorry, was held at the Sutez Roman Catholic Church, St. Patrick. My dear Uncle Tilly, I've been calling him out. I've been calling him out. And he came out, not because I called him out. He was at the funeral in attendance, and he gave tribute to Winston White, who was a colleague of his, and they were colleagues at the Calabash up in Richmond Hill when the PRG locked them up for speaking out. This is what, well, not what he said, this is a snippet of what he said at the service. This is what caught my attention.
As I listen to the sisters and you see about hypocrisy and this and that coming out, it is true. The society remained a hypocritical society during that period. And when a nation closes its eyes to the truth, you are destined for destruction. And we saw the destruction. Some of them still don't want to come up and own up to the truth. But, as I say, we must express our gratitude to Winston for his stand, for his contribution to our society, and as a friend. He suffered, most of us suffered, but he suffered more than all of us, as far as I could recall. And there was no reason for that. If a man has been gifted, let us respect his gift. Let us discuss and debate. But we cannot suppress humanity for ideology. This is something we have to understand as a people. Nothing comes before the brotherhood of man. And we still don't want to accept it. So again, my sincere condolences to the family of Winston White. And not only I wish that he rest in peace, but it's my hope that he would share in the resurrection. Thank you.
Let's go over quickly some of what Dr. Tilly said. Nothing comes before the brotherhood of man. Very profound statement. People first, right? Yeah, but people first. This from a man who is in full support of a government or administration who take away low-income housing from the poor and vulnerable. An administration who is in the process of displacing the ordinary man struggling to make a living, taking away their livelihood with no replacement, their bread and butter, leaving them with no alternative. And I said it again, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's the little things that make a difference. He said, when a nation closes its eyes to the truth, it is destined to destruction. I say amen to that, brother. Simon Says endorses that statement. We have to stand up for what is right, he says, irrespective of the consequences. Hallelujah, brother. I could not have said it better. Is something bothering you, Uncle Tilly? He spoke about the Marxist-Leninist and being locked up by that ideology. These days, we're raising it from the dead. Is something on your mind, Uncle Tilly? What's bothering you, Uncle Tilly? Come talk to me. His son, Robert White, did the eulogy, who did a great synopsis of his dad. 10 minutes of it. I'll give you a little snippet of it as well. Winston had a lifetime of history to tell. And so Robert did well in bringing it, in doing a précis, as we would say, in a synopsis of 10 minutes, right? I'll share with you a snippet that was embarrassing, to say the least, with the Prime Minister sitting at the front and being a member of the National Organizing Committee for the National 50th Anniversary Celebration. Here's what Robert White had to say.
And so Honorable Tillman Thomas is still here today to show his last respects. Both himself and Dr. Keith mentioned that Winston held no grudges, right? It is what it is. One of his most treasured accomplishments, though, was being a representative on the government side of the delegation that traveled to England to negotiate the attainment of Grenada's independence from Britain. On February 7th, 2024, while looking at the parade from our home, he lamented, "My son, I'm glad to be alive to witness how far we've come in 50 years. It would have been good to sit in the park with the officials if only they remembered me." I hope he didn't take that to his grave, because as I said, he don't hold grudges.
If only they remembered me. Once again, this administration's nepotism showed its ugly face. When you looked in the official boxes, you saw family members and friends, mother and father, who had nothing to do, as a matter of fact, who was part of the overthrow of the Gary regime, the coup, who was part of it, sitting in box right there behind the Prime Minister. People who have nothing, who had nothing. This gentleman went to the UK with the Prime Minister. He was a part of his cabinet then, and he's still alive to see the 50th anniversary. Why would you leave him off a list like that? Right? And he wasn't the only one. He wasn't the only one, right? The advisors and their family and everybody sitting there, and not even an invite to a gentleman like Mr. Winston. It hurts. It hurts me, much less his son. You saw he choked a bit while he was speaking about it. If only they remembered me, and died shortly after, huh? There were people like Jerry Romaine, who has been a part of the GULP, right? There's some of them who died. I mean, like Mr. Robert Blaze died, but his adult children. As a matter of fact, I came into Grenada from Miami a few days before the celebration and was on flight with one of his daughters. And she expressed to me that she hadn't gotten an invite yet, but she hoped there's one waiting for her. It didn't happen. It didn't happen, right? There's the leaders. There were other leaders of the GULP after Sir Eric Gary, people like Michael Batiste and Jeffrey Prudhomme, who is now the leader and controversial leader, but he is the leader, and he was the son of Herbert of Mr. Prudhomme, who was the deputy prime minister, which they had, or at the time of the GULP, right? Then there was Mr. Norman D. Souza, who was a cabinet member at the time. He came back to Grenada for the celebration, but was not invited officially. But there we had Mrs. Bishop, Morris's ex-wife, who was not even in Grenada for most of the time during the revolution. She left him and went away, right? She was invited and pinned. I think she was the first person to pin, even before the Sir Eric's daughter. But she was pinned. I stand corrected on that, right? But she was pinned on that day. And we have Winston White saying, if only they remembered me. If only they remembered me. And there were others, their names. I mean, I only had a short period of time to gather a few names of persons, but there are persons who worked hard alongside Sir Eric Gary for the independence of Grenada who are alive. And if not, their adult children are alive and could have been invited. But no, it's a family affair. It's a family affair. The NDC has yet again dropped the ball. What they say? We used to say in netball, drop catch, lose match. As I wrap up, the retroactive government strikes again. Remember, I brought to your attention a couple of episodes ago that persons were paying the added $50 to the license fees, but it was not yet legislated. So it was illegal to take $50 from persons who are going to renew their license. Well, on Tuesday, the 26th March, in the Parliament sitting, that's Tuesday, just gone, the bill was finally passed in the lower house of Parliament. This is what the leader of His Majesty's opposition had to say on that.
But just to make the point, the fact is, drivers have been paying that $50 for a time, sometime now. It already came to Parliament, and many things that were said here today were said by the minister then about the need for the increase $50. There's a repetition of what was then, on the additional stuff about roads and so on. So the fact is, drivers are paying the extra $50 literally without we coming here for the resolution that should have been done. So people are paying the extra $50. So you may have to do retroactive, because otherwise, if this is given accent today and is implemented as the date, then you may have to return the $50 to everybody that were paying the amount.
Okay. Retroactive, again, anyhow you take it, that is retroactive. But this is what the Minister of Finance had to say in reply to Dr. Mitchell's concern.
And I wish to state that I fully support the resolution that has been presented to us this morning regarding the $50 increase on motor vehicle license. And again, the Prime Minister indicated very well that this money will be used to improve the road maintenance throughout the country. We are looking to raise somewhere in the tune of $2.6 million in 2024 to be able to assist with our road maintenance. And while some of the taxpayers would have already paid that $50 and we did not have in place the resolution passed, we have agreed that we would give a credit to the taxpayers who already paid, so that nobody would be actually be affected unduly. So we are making sure that going forward in the next cycle of motor vehicle payment, tax payment, that credit will be given to the taxpayers.
So they now have to credit. A simple thing like that. Legislate before you start taking the people money. You take the people money, now you're saying you have to give credit to them. I mean, what can they get right? What can go, smoothly? Smoothly. We're begging, we want smoothly, right? The leader of the opposition had some point questions for the Minister of Finance at the sitting on Tuesday, the 26th March. We put up the HOR on the other paper on the screen on the site, so you can access it, right? It was nine of them, and the first one, what was the actual budget provided to the National Organization Committee? Were contracts awarded, that's number 2, were contracts awarded in keeping with the Public Procurement Act of Grenada? If yes, please provide evidence of the same. Who designed the Grenada Turns 50 logo and how much was paid to that service provider? Who owns the copyright for the official theme song of the 50th anniversary celebration? How much funds were raised for the sale of independence paraphernalia to the state of Grenada, which revenue headed in the budget would the funds be categorized? Where are payments made to members, or sorry, were any payments made to members of the Secretariat? If so, please provide the name, position, and the amount paid or to be paid. Did the government of Grenada, through the National Organizing Committee, pay or sponsor flights and accommodation for persons in the diaspora to come home for the independence celebration? If so, please provide a list of the names, description, distinction, and the cost associated with accommodation and travel for each individual. What were the costs paid for marketing and or sponsorship for the celebration? How long would the Secretariat remain in existence? Now, here is what the leader of the opposition said at the Parliament.
I stand to ask, but before I say this, really it was one question I asked. It was just several parts. As you can see, they're all correlated. So really, I just stand to ask the one question standing in my name. It's just several parts. It should have been A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on. To the Honorable Minister of Finance, I just note that 2 parts were not allowed, but Mr. Speaker and I would speak about this accordingly.
So, Honorable Minister for Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to indicate that I have acknowledged receipt of those questions, 9 subsection of those principal questions. I must also say that the National Organization Committee was the committee charged with undertaking the activities for the national independence, as well as the parish activities that is now ongoing. Some of the questions, I will not be able to answer them immediately because they will require that all the activities be conducted and an audited financial statement of the event would need to be put in place before I can give you an answer that is going to be authentic, because I would not want to put my foot in my mouth at this point in time to make statements that are not factual because I don't have the data. However, I have communicated with the National Organization Committee to provide me with most of the answers that are available at this point in time. So I will wait until I get a feedback from that organization with questions that I've given them, so that I'll be able to at least report to this Honorable House. Thank you.
So the Minister of Finance do not know what's going on in the Secretariat, because the Secretariat run on their own, family and friend, who paying who hiring who hire brother, who hire husband, who hire sister-in-law, But as I said last week, we would keep at it, not only with the opposition in the Parliament, but Simon says we would ask about the monies and how we spend the 22.5 million that was given to them. I got the maths correct, didn't I? Right? People were saying 1450, but they forgot the 7.5 from the year, the ending up of the last quarter of 2023, right? And the 15 million was announced as allocation in the budget. But here, Dr. Mitchell on the rebound, because he was told that they can't answer the questions because they're waiting on the Secretariat and the NOC. Here is Dr. Mitchell on the rebound.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, with due respect to the Honorable Member, I understand the point that's been made, but if the member looks carefully, the first question said what was the actual budget provided to the National Organization Committee. It didn't talk about that portion didn't talk about what is spent and what is accounted for. It asked for what is the budget that was provided, and the government and the ministry ought to have that number. I mean, people can't get money without the initiative of the resources available to it. So, Mr. Speaker, just to make a point on this one, there are other parts that could, of course, be answered too, but I just make a general point. I appreciate if the minister did not have the information, all the information, then it was provided at a later date. And that's okay with me because it's happened before in this House. But that question does not call for any auditing of reports.
Honorable Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, with reference to the subsection, the question was asked about the budget that has been provided for the independents. It's no secret because it's a public information that sometime in September of last year, we came to the House with a supplementary estimate to the amount of $7.5 million for the carnival activities. We said that this was needed to provide for activities that would have actually been needed prior to the independence itself. And again, in this Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, we did pass a budget that included the sum of $15 million for the independence celebration. If I should add both of them together, I think it works out to be about $22.5 million. However, I cannot tell you at this stage that that amount of money has been transferred to the National Organization Committee, and therefore I'll wait until I get a response from the ministry and the committee as to what has transpired there. Okay?
Okay. I mean, I've been telling you it was 22.5 million for the longest because it's easy math. I'm not a mathematician by any means. Hated math in school. My sister taught me math, and that's the only time when she was there I did some math. Other than that, I duck math from there. Anyhow, these guys obviously came to enrich themselves. The big boys are bagging CBI monies as agents, and the small men and women accumulating however they can by any means possible, in the words of Malcolm X. For instance, ATV tours in Carriacou. Listen well, ATV tours. Andy, Tevin, and Valerie Thompson Duncan. Val for short, an NDC social and political activist, resident of Carriacou. Their own company, their own business, Andy and Tevin. Security firms galore, $1 million loans galore, real estate, $1 million chicken farm on its way back, branding and marketing business on its way back, and many more, many more. You telling me? Huh? In the meantime, we still are waiting transformation. We are waiting the plan 75, 35, or 25, whichever plan we are waiting for it to unfold. Show us a plan, some plan, any plan. Show us your vision for sustainable development. Tell us what's going on in the rural areas. What's your plan for rural development, rural transformation? Here is Minister Dennis Conwell, then as he campaigned for the win.
In every village I visited during the House Ropes campaign in my constituency, there was a common cry for roads that were abandoned because those roads started by a former NDC government. In the first 6 months of this NDC government in office, my government will complete all those abandoned roads in Montrose, Pointsville, River Sally, and Hermitage. Some of these roads need just a few $100,000 to be completed. How can an incumbent government abandon the people of St. Patrick's in such a blatant manner?
Only a few $100,000. Now, this is him as Minister of Finance and member of St. Patrick East after the win.
And I've heard people talking out there, oh, the parliamentarians in St. Patrick, East and West have done nothing. Now, I don't know where they expect the government to get the money for to fix a road in 3 months' time. Now, whether you want to call it politics or you want to call it politicking, I think some of our persons out there need to understand one thing. Government do not expect manna to fall from heaven to be able to do some of the things that they want us to do. Yes, the bridge in Montfenju and Highgate and in Mali's, they need urgent attention. But it was there for several years untouched. Several years. We have now moved to try and give the bridge in Montfenju a facelift. And you're still hearing people talking about, oh, the bridge is compromised and it's going to go. Yes, it's going to go if we don't attend to it. But we'll have to have appropriate resources to get it done. Again, there are other projects in St. Patrick that needs attention. Take, for example, the breakwater. People are saying what? Nothing is done to basically develop breakwater in Cities. Again, we need resources to do that. And I must inform them that while they have not seen anything practical on the ground happening, apart from the regular cleanups that we do on the breakwater and so on, we are well on our way to make sure that that particular project is going to be addressed. Because you have a design for it, we have the EIA being conducted, we have the social impact done, and as such, sooner than later, that breakwater becomes an active project on the ground. And so the people of St. Patrick who are complaining about nothing is happening to St. Patrick, we are not only spending money in St. David's and St. George's, we are spending money throughout the country to improve the infrastructure of Grenada. And I want to lay that point before this honorable house. I thank you.
I like how he makes sure he tells the Prime Minister that only in St. David's and the South they're spending money. The thing is, as I said earlier on, if the condominiums in the Villa St. Patrick were ready, they would not have had to be going and trying to retrofit them now to house the victims of the fire in Chantemelle a couple of days ago, right? But no, St. David's have to be ready first, right? The WASH project that started in St. David, they're about completion. And where are they moving to? The South, the Great South, as they say. If all you play black, take off the blindfold. The rest of you, take off the blindfold. Okay? Folks, this is a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. Once again, it was a pleasure conversing with you, keeping them honest. Thank you for joining Simon Says, where facts come first. See you next week, same time, same place. Happy Easter, y'all.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.